great turnout, a testament to people coming out again and coming to the Women in Transition, How to Find Your Financial Focus in 2022. I am, if you don't know me, I'm Gina Ann Costigan. I'm the Vice President of Main Street Mortgage. Thank you. I'm the crazy one who puts these events on. Thank you so much, though, for coming this evening. This means a lot to us, and we also are talking about women in transition and also men that are also in transition as well. We can't leave them out. We have an extremely amazing panel this evening. We are going to be starting with some of the best professionals in the Conejo Valley. And I personally have the privilege to know each of them, worked with each of them, and gotten to know them on a real personal basis. So I consider them friends as well. I'm going to introduce first one of my favorite people, John W. Millet, America's home ownership coach. We've changed that. John is also the president, owner, broker of Main Street Mortgage, and my partner and boss for the last 9 years. Did you put the slide on? When I'm ready? Okay. I have Megan Valenote. She is a broker associate, Sotheby's International. You can go ahead and stand, Megan. And next, I have Janet Price, divorce, co-parenting, and life transition coach. Janet also has her MBA from Cornell University and is conscious co-parenting coach. Janet has experienced many transitions in her life and attributes these transitions as the reason for her why she is able to find her life purpose. Next, we have Marty Laff. She is a wealth planning and investment advisor. I have to go back and this real quick. Thank you, Marty. And next we have Kim Picano, host, coach, personality of the show 1590 KVTA, The Kim Picano Show, which John and I have both been on, and she's awesome. Next I have Debbie Morgan, CPA, Deborah Morgan and Company, and I personally know Deborah because she did my taxes. And Meredith Gonzalez, certified long-term care planner, agent, New York Life. I don't want to be standing. Okay, so back here I have a slide, and I have a slide of my family as well, and they're here tonight, so they can each raise their hand. My dad, Jean, my mom, Carmen, my sister, Christina, and my niece, Alexa, and Michelle, of course, and Heather. So I grew up, a little background about me. I grew up in a mortgage family, been in the industry for about 1993. My father was the group president of the Northwest Division for Household/Beneficial Finance. Graduated from Cal Poly in 1993. I shouldn't have to look at these things. That's pretty sad. And I started in the mortgage industry in 1993. You go ahead, next one. And people who know me know this is my why. Chrissy couldn't be here tonight. She's taken a nursing test, and Haley is working, of course. This is when we went to Sedona in 2021, and Chrissy, my youngest daughter, just graduated from Cal Lutheran University, and she is now pursuing nursing, which I'm so proud of her and excited. And I'm so happy she's done with college because I'm not paying anymore. And Haley is my oldest daughter, and she graduated from Cal Lutheran in 2018, and she's working at PennyMac, and she's also pursuing becoming an officer in Simi Valley PD. So they are both on a mission. So transition can be tough for so many situations, and I personally have experienced a few significant transitions myself. Being divorced with 2 small daughters, and that was not only difficult, it was truly one of the biggest challenges I've gone through in my life. At that time, I didn't listen to anyone or didn't really know the resources of what to do with the income that I received from the house that I sold. If I had more resources, had more people to talk to, and had this panel right here, I'd probably have 3 condos instead of 1. Therefore, I've now become, I feel, an advocate and true connector in the community for anyone going through these tough times or any transitions in their lives. So next, I would like to introduce to you John W. Millet.
Well, thank you for being here. thank you. It's great to see you. It's great to be here. And really appreciate your time and, for making the effort to be here tonight. So that's great. This is a workshop or seminar event about women in transition. And so the first thing we have to get taken care of right up front, the elephant in the room, is why is a male Homo sapien talking to a group of women about transition? And it all started with a story and an event that I had that I'll share with you. And it's kind of an interesting thing that happened to me. I was going through my email a few years ago, and in this email I saw a fire walk. I've always wanted to walk the fire walk. You know, you have the fire walk, they're about 15 to 2,000 degrees, they're hot. And I thought that'd be a lot of fun. So there was a Tony Robbins seminar, it was in San Jose, and so I signed up for it. And I remember driving to San Jose to the event saying, oh, this is going to be great. I'm sure that we're probably going to walk the coals on the last day of the event. Well, come to find out, when I was registering, just as I was leaving to go into the hall, I said, by the way, when are we going to do the fire walk? And she says, we're going to do it tonight. And I'm going, how? It's an intimate atmosphere. There were only 4,000 people there at the entire convention. And I thought to myself, how is he going to get us ready to be able to walk the coals in one day? And so I was a little bit concerned about that. And then I went in and we started going through the process. It was about 12 o'clock. And about 6 o'clock, he said, okay, now we're going to start getting you ready for walking on the fire walk, the coals. And he said the number one priority is that you must have a purpose, something that's on the other side of the coals that you are willing to walk the coals for. And I thought, oh, no problem. It's my wife, my children, maybe it's a private jet. I don't know. I'm sure something will come into my mind for that. Never had a problem with that before. Well, so everybody went quiet, took a cleansing breath, closed my eyes, and when Tony said, okay, wake up, it's over, come back, I had nothing. There was not one thing that came to my mind. I've never had a situation where my mind was completely blank. And so then I thought, well, that's really weird. And then Tony said, don't worry about it. We'll do it a couple more times to make sure you'll be covered. And so then we did it. Then at about 9:30 at night, you kind of lose track of time when you're in the way he does it. And there are these big plasma TVs on the stage. And what he said was, he says, puts in his ear like this, and he says, okay, we're going to go to the fire pits or the fire walks where they're preparing all the coals and the embers and things like that. And so he switched over, and on these plasma screens came these huge screens of fire. I mean, it was just fire that was flaming up. It was wood that was burning. And I'm going, oh my gosh. Now, I didn't say that. I said something different. And I said, this, all of a sudden, this was no fun. I was going, wait a minute. Now, what I thought was going to be a good time is now a defining moment. Am I going to run or am I going to do something with this? And so then he did it again. He said, okay, go in to find your purpose. I went deeper this time, a little more serious. I mean, those flames were there. That was really, really sobering to me. And sure enough, nothing came. So then at about 12 o'clock, he said, okay, the third time. Now, what had happened between the time that I did it the second time and the third time is I made two things happen. Number one, I made a commitment. I made a commitment that I was going to walk the coals regardless of whether I had a vision or not, a purpose. I was there to do that. Exactly, that's what I was going to do. And there's a quote by W Murray that says that until you're committed, there's always hesitancy, drawing back, things of that nature. But when you're committed, providence moves too. All sorts of things occur that would have come that way. And the second thing that I did was, I tend to be a very controlling individual. Not in my marriage, though, just so you know that. And so I'm getting over that and getting better than that, but I decided the second thing I would do is I would give up control. I decided at that time that I would relinquish control, to the universe, to God, whatever it works for you. I basically said, this is not fun anymore. This is becoming much bigger than me. I'm going to just turn it over and relinquish. And so when I took a deep breath, I closed my eyes, and in my mind immediately came a vision. And it was a vision of me speaking to a group of women at the North Ranch Country Club. It was crazy when I thought, what's going on here? There's no jet, there's no kids, there's none of this. There's a woman that I was teaching, and I had two questions on that. The first question was, why? What do I have to impart to women? How can I help them? And I started reflecting on this and tried to figure this out, and I reflected on my own business practices where women come to me that are newly divorced. It's the first time that they bought a home on their own. Usually their husband did most of the stuff, but they have come to me and my team, and we walk them through every single step of the way. We empower them. We make sure that we don't make the decisions for them. They ask us a lot of times, will you decide? I say, no. Here's what the options are. Here's the education. Now, what do you feel most comfortable with? And so we really work on empowering. Then I had women come that were in my office, and they were in great anxiety and frankly in tears. Their husband had just left them for a woman that was 25 years younger. And that's happened on several occasions where they got to move their kids. They went from a 35 square foot home to a 15 square foot, 100 square foot apartment. They had to change schools. I mean, it's really, really tough. And then women, my clients would call me where the spouse or life partner would die. It was either traumatic or sudden. And they would say, what do I do? How do I take care of my mortgage? What do I do? And can you help me? And so I thought about that. I thought, well, maybe there's something I can do there. And then I thought about my own life. I thought about when I came home from playing with my friends. In our living room was my dad's suitcases and my mother explaining to me that they were getting divorced. And then about 3 or 4 months later, if you can imagine the most ugly yellow station wagon you've ever seen, with a U-Haul trailer on the back in the driveway of a 2-story lovely home 2 blocks away from the beach in Santa Cruz, California. We were driving out to San Luis Obispo so that my mother could get her college degree. She re-upped and was accepted, and she was going to go for it. And between the ages of 8 and 14, we moved 5 times. And it was mostly because we couldn't either pay the rent or we were asked to leave by the landlord. That's where I really got this thing about renting, that I just despise it. And the 5th and final move was into the projects. And yes, it's true, they have projects in San Luis Obispo, just so you know. Everybody asked me that. Government housing. And it was, at least I knew that we'd have a place to stay. It was difficult for me. It was like 7 months before I ever had any of my friends come over. And then if you go back about a couple years before that, our pastor and a brain surgeon came over to our home, and my mother had been falling, and they didn't know what was wrong, and they basically sat us down, me and my 3 older brothers and sisters, and said, your mother is diagnosed with multiple sclerosis. It's a degenerative disease. The myelin sheath on her spinal cord is degenerating, and she will lose motor function. She may not be able to walk in the near future. That was it. And so at the age of 12, I became a quasi-caregiver. And then in going through, and even though I can't, and it's really important that we understand that I don't know what it's like to be a woman. I got to make that really clear. Because there's a lot of people that fake that they do, but if you're not a woman, you don't know. But what I can do is I can relate and give you a little bit of a sliver of understanding of what I can appreciate and understand that women go through. When I saw my mother go through her struggles of trying to develop new relationships, new dating, deal with the not truancy, but yeah, I mean, she had to raise 4 kids that were simply wild and out of control. And so I went through that. I saw my sisters and all the things that they had gone through and how difficult it was. How, sometimes nights my mother would fall and, just searing cry would come. And it was really hard. We were on welfare and food stamps. And then when I was 18 years old, I was at her bedside as I watched her transition and pass away. And so at that time, so I was reflecting on this, that what happened, then the second question came to me and said, are you willing to walk the coals for these women? And the answer was a resounding 100%, 110% yes. And so that's why you're here tonight. It's that vision, that commitment, and with the help of Gina, well, I can't do it without her, that is why we're here tonight. And to support you and do everything we can. And it's very interesting to know that right now women are the second largest group of people that are buying homes, more than men. If I were to ask you, are there more men living with their parents or women, what would you say? More men, right? Automatic. I mean, let me ask you this. What percentage do you think women who find out that they're dating a person that's living with their parents drop them? 95%. 95%. Now, by the way, I'm not throwing my male colleagues under the bus here tonight. I just want to make it clear that women are bad, all right? I mean, you've really got a lot going for you. And real quickly, the research that we've done, and I'll go through this real quick so we have lots of time for our panel here. So there's strategies with life changes. And it has to do a lot with housing, because housing is kind of the center point of where you live and how you interact in the environment that you spend most of your time in. So one is solo relationship. There's a feeling out there with women, research proves this out, that they tend to not want to buy a home until they get married or until they have a commitment or something of that nature. And I'm here to tell you tonight that that's not what's happening. There are more ways to qualify for financing for a home than you can believe. I mean, there's so much opportunity, it's crazy. The other strategy is you have a great relationship. What do you do to empower your relationship? One thing that we've found is that if you have an agreement together to pay off your home, it does amazing things between the two of you. So there's, not always, some feel comfortable with it, some don't. But there are some amazing things that you can do as a strategy that relate specifically to home ownership. The third one is issues with the relationship. You feel that there's something going on, but you're not quite sure. You can't quite put your finger on what it is. And so, you're busy with the kids, there's a lot going on in life, and that's where we really encourage you to take a step back, because that's the time to say, wait a minute, something may not be right. And in doing that, we really encourage, counseling but you never tell a man that you want to go to counseling and that you want him to go to counseling. You say, honey, I'd like us to have some coaching. So use the word coaching. They're much more inviting to that. And you may find that when you take stock of this, you may find that the relationship may not be able to recover. And as a result of that, you need to begin putting together strategies that will protect you and your children so that you have shelter, you have a place to live. The next one is demise of the relationship. We have people coming in that say, my husband left me, what do I do now? There's strategies that are specifically outlined for that. And then, of course, unexpected loss of spouse or partner. That's a really serious one, and that's where we can help as well as that. So there's a lot of strategies, a lot of things that you can employ that will make it so that you can have the life that you want in the home that you want. And we really believe that it has so much to do, your home environment has so much to do with the quality of your life. So that's it for me. Thank you very much. We'll turn it over. Do we have any questions before we go on? Okay, we'll have questions at the end too, so you're welcome to think about it. All right, thank you.
I too have been through a divorce with children and made a big transition from my previous career into being a realtor broker with Sotheby's International Realty here in Westlake Village. So I want to tell you a little bit about how important it is to me to share with you a continuation of what John's saying about getting into real estate even under these uncertain times and staying the course to build your wealth. So a little bit about me. I've been a realtor for 7 years with Sotheby's International, as I said. I joined the company because of its long-standing reputation as offering stellar client service, and it's centuries old, really. It began in the 1700s in the auction house and grew to a real estate firm that was going to help their clients whose art pieces and jewelry and precious items they were selling, and they wanted that kind of service when they bought homes. And it spoke to me because they're all over the world. They're a global brand with 1,000 offices, and it has allowed me to build in such a short time of being in the business, only 7 years, an incredible 25% of my overall income comes from referral business. So my old world was training animals for the movie industry. So I did that for 30 years, and I shot all over the United States and abroad. I've done movies in China, I've lived in France multiple times, I've worked in Canada, too many times to count. And every time I went on a job, I became really close to the people I was working with, the other crew members, because you're living in an isolated place. I'm not talking about being in LA and going to set and coming home, I'm talking to being on location. And I got really close to the people I worked with because you're there for 4, 5, 6 months at a time working with local people. So I was the import. And during that time, I made great, deep friendships. And since then, with real estate and the company that I'm with, I've been able to bridge and marry my old world, my old workmates with agents where they live now. And it's been an incredible opportunity. And I think it's elevated my profession, and it's contributed to my income greatly through warm lead referrals. So for today's topic, I wanted to build on John's presentation and talk about the cost of waiting to get into real estate, the real estate market now, and why I don't recommend waiting. Plus, I wanted to share a few alternative ways to become involved in investing for wealth in real estate. And even as rising interest rates, we're somewhere between 5.2% for a 30-year conforming fixed mortgage right now, historically, these rates are still considered to be relatively low. In the 70s, we were in the 11% range. In the 80s, we were at 16.6%. I think the news and all the doom and gloom has scared a lot of people. And that could be a win for you if you're a buyer right now, even though we still have an incredible shortage of inventory. So I want to encourage buyers who are fatigued from losing out against repeated fail attempts to compete in this seller's market, to hang tough and keep trying to win. You need someone to negotiate and teach you how to win that offer through negotiating skills, through what terms are best to have your offer stand out. The fluctuating stock market, as I mentioned, scary international news, political strife, polarizing social issues, and rising interest rates have caused the real estate market to cool down somewhat. Still, there is this incredible shortage. Now is not the time to stop making offers. I truly believe it. You've got to get in now because the cost of waiting is dear. And I'm a few reasons why, and I'm going to give you some hard examples right now, is that just waiting 2 short years to buy a house right now will cost you 11% more in purchase price. And if you wait 3 years, that number balloons to 17%. Of course, that means that your cash for your down payment will be greatly increased. Your monthly payments will also be way bigger. But the biggest, most shocking thing about waiting to buy right now, whether it's a single family home for you or an investment property that you go in on with a girlfriend, is the loss of equity you will gain. If you buy a $900,000 condo or small house, these days that's what you get for $900,000, it's depressing. But if you invest in a $900,000 house today, in 10 years, you will gain $500,000 in equity. That's astounding. If you wait, you're going to lose out on those numbers. In order to compete and get into the market, some financial institutions have created programs such as the Buyers Accepted program. That allows buyers who have lost out over the years to compete with these all-cash buyers. So you have a buyer who's well qualified, a couple, a single person, they come and they're giving it their all to get into the market, and they can't compete with these all-cash people. And these programs actually buy the house for you and give you 90 days to sell your house, so you can come in non-contingent, and they charge a fee for it, but it's one way to get into the market if you have family or friends who have not been winning. However, wise investors don't bet on appreciation alone. They purchase investment properties on sound judgment that it will generate more income than it costs to own them. Most economists will agree that real estate builds wealth more consistently than any of the other asset classes. Remember, real estate is limited. There is only so much land to build on. We're only here on this one earth. And the laws of supply and demand say if something is limited and it's in high demand, it's going to be more expensive. The prices are going to rise, essentially. So as our population rises, so will real estate. The U.S. national home price has increased 441% since 1987 and rebounded 207% since the crisis of 2008 at its lowest point. Real estate just keeps going up. The key is you have to hold and be patient. Since real estate is the gateway to wealth accumulation, there are numerous ways other than buying a single family house for interested investors to put their capital to work. So I mentioned you could combine with a friend. You could ask family to join in with you and maybe buy something smaller and more affordable that could become a rental. But there are other ways you can invest in real estate too, and I'm just going to touch on them briefly. Something called private equity funds, which allows you to trade capital for an equity position in a company formed to manage a single asset property or portfolio of commercial properties. This is a long-term investment. It's a long hold. Then there's something called investing in a qualified opportunity zone, which spurs real estate development in an underserved, and economically disadvantaged area. And there's lots of them all over this area as well. And you can defer taxes and gain significant tax benefits by doing this kind of investing. So you're pooling. A lot of these are pooling and contributing, whether it's friends and family or going to an organization that does these kinds of funds. A third option is to invest in a real estate investment trust, which can either be a publicly traded or non-traded sort of like a stock. And this deals with only income-producing properties. A fourth way is to complete a 1031 exchange. So again, this is dealing in an investment property. It can't be your personal home. Some people come to me and say, my parents have had this home for a long time, and how can we do this and do a 1031 exchange? My father's a 1031 exchange specialist attorney. You can't do that. They live there. It has to be a rental. So you have to get into that rental to start the 1031 exchange. And it's a great way to prevent paying taxes in perpetuity. You just keep trading up. You trade like for like, keep a rental property going, and you never have to pay taxes on that, and you're making passive income from it. And hopefully, and when you pass on, your children don't have to pay the capital gains, I believe, on death of that person. I'm gonna have to double check on that. A fifth way is to invest in a syndicate, where you trade your capital for an equity position in the general partnership formed by an existing property. And the Empire State Building is owned by a syndicate, funny enough. Participate in a mini IPO is number 6, which requires a longer time horizon where anyone may invest in a private company and is more high risk and more high return. The last is invest in a private debt fund where you pool your money in exchange for an equity position in a company formed to lend money to finance real estate projects. This is a high yield product with low risk. Ultimately, there are numerous ways to invest in real estate. The best one would balance the investment objectives, risk, time, and net worth of that individual. And the goal is to grow your net worth. Real estate has historically strong returns, provides passive income in many instances, can hedge inflation and the gyrations of the stock market. Please investigate these alternate ways to invest in property and get your wealth growing. Thank you.
Thank you everyone for coming tonight. If you all are in a life transition right now, that's very brave, and I really honor and see you for coming and taking a step out. Transition can be really, really hard. It can be very scary. It can be a place where you're frozen. There can be a lot of shame involved, and sometimes when you're going through a transition, all you want to do is lock yourself in your house and just not go out, not take care of yourself. So if you're in this space right now, I'm honoring you tonight that you took the step to come here, because you know that you can do better, you know you can have a thriving life, and you know that you're bringing a tribe together and learning to have a tribe. If you're a professional here today that's supporting, please, I know you know this, but people in transition sometimes are crazy. They're gonna drive you crazy. They're gonna cry all of a sudden. They're gonna be screaming at you. They're gonna be, just not making any sense. And it's just because there's too much hitting them at the same time. They might not even be listening to you very well. You might have to find yourself over and over saying the same thing and going back and thinking, boy, that person really was ditzy. But it's not. It's just that it's as if there's a fog in their head, and it's very, very hard to think. It doesn't matter what gender, a transition, no matter if it's chosen or not, a transition is very, very hard. I mean, I actually was just talking with a client yesterday who actually told me, I'm not in the right headspace, so I can't keep this appointment. It was a gentleman. And he started talking about what was going on with him, and he goes, it's just life's so hard, and all these crazy things. I threw my back out last night and all this. And I just said, look, here's the best thing you can do for yourself right now is whatever you think in the next 6 months that you want to do, cut it in half. Only do half of it. Because in transition, we do the silliest things to ourselves. I mean, I'm going to tell you about my divorce. I got 3 tickets and a car accident in the first 6 months of going through the divorce, and it was just around the corner. But it's just craziness. And every scar that I have on my body, and I was in the hospital because I was running out somewhere when I was a kid and teenager, and I have a scar over my eye. Transition. Every single time that I had something like that fluke accident was because I was in that space of dizziness. So welcome, and if you're supporting people in transition, just keep that in mind and help give them the space. So who am I? Thank you, Gina, for, where are you? For the introduction. That was lovely. Yes, I am a 50-year-old woman who was a child whose parents divorced and was very heavily caught in the middle. Yet I didn't really realize it because I'm so strong-willed. I was caught in the middle, and one of my parents very strongly tried to make me hate my other parent. And I didn't realize it at the time, Instead, I just warred with that parent most of the time, and my birthday's in November, so at 17 I graduated and I was the heck out of Dodge. And I, still stayed in California, but went very far away, never went home again. Financed my own college, didn't want anybody's money, did loans all the way through, living, I was gonna own a skyscraper in downtown LA. So that was, I graduated from USC, met my first husband, had a job in LA, and then he chose to go to law school, and it was either Northern California or the East Coast. And I said, Northern California I'm not going there, that's where my family is. So if you go to the East Coast, I'll go. So we went, that's why I was at Cornell. He went to Cornell Law School and I went to Cornell Business School at that time. We got married the December before we graduated, and we came back to Southern California. So we had these great lives, corporate lives. He's a corporate attorney. I was in the business consulting corporate world. I was rising in my career. I was a senior manager at a large consulting firm, Deloitte & Touche. I was a year away from making partner at a time when they were really promoting women partners, and I was being mentored and groomed to do so. And then I found out I was pregnant. I was a little lazy on the tracking everything from a travel standpoint, wasn't really paying attention. And didn't know, because I had such an experience with my parents, wasn't so sure how I felt about becoming a parent, to be honest. Wasn't so sure what that meant. Wasn't so sure if I was going to become a stay-at-home mom or what was going to happen. Had that all the way up until my first son was born 3 weeks early, and the moment he was born, it just rushed over me like, I don't know. And I just basically knew I had to quit. I mean, it was nothing. In that moment, something hit me, and I called my partner the next day. He begged me, and I just quit. So that was my first transition. Not only did I quit, my first husband his family came from a Latino community, and I found all his family was in Southern California, and I thought it was going to be a shame if our children didn't learn Spanish. So not only did I quit making an income where I made equal, we had a home together and I brought in half the bacon, I became a stay-at-home mom and stopped speaking English. And I had 2 or 3 years of Spanish in my belt, but I really didn't do it very well. And so I only started speaking Spanish in the household. So now I've turned on Spanish TV. I shut off all English input into my life so that I could teach my first son and then my second son Spanish as their first language. So that was I made that transition on myself. I chose to quit. I chose to stop speaking English. I chose to become a stay-at-home mom. My second son was born 2 years later, and we moved to our next house. We moved back to LA, and we've been in Malibu this whole time. So I moved to our next house in Malibu, and by the time the boys were 4 and 2, not yet in preschool, but not yet in elementary school, the problems in our marriage were pretty rough. And I didn't do therapy. I should have done therapy. I didn't ask for help. And our marriage ended pretty rapidly. We, kind of overnight actually. We mediated in 1 week. We were divorced. I again chose to settle things, sell the house, take half the money of the house. So John, yes, I know how this has helped me in my life. And no alimony, no child support. Thank you very much. Let's live our separate lives. So now I have 5 years basically in order to try restarting my life. So I wanted to start a business on my own in Malibu, where my kids were going to go to elementary school. I did that, and 4 years later I didn't make enough money. Real estate. Wasn't making enough to buy my own home again, which was my goal. And so went back to the W-2 world. So now I'm a single mom, having to figure out what to do with 2 very young children, now driving 120 miles one way to Rancho Cucamonga 3 days a week in this new place. Why? Because I had just enough money and all I needed was 1 more year of taxes so I could buy my next house. And that was my goal. So I still had money, it was my down, and I knew I needed to buy a house for me and my children. And so that's what I did. And so that started the next phase of me working. Now, what about my ex-husband? All along from the moment we started divorcing, or the moment we finished our divorce, things were a struggle. They were a real struggle. Not for me not trying. I asked to do joint birthday parties. I asked to invite his girlfriend and wife into the household to learn how I parented my children. I bought them wedding gifts. But it just kept escalating and escalating. So basically this next phase, yes, I bought a house. This is the house I'm in now. Yes, I found a man who I fell in love with. He fell in love with me. He fell in love with my children. He said it was an impossible relationship because he had only been with single mom and with boys, and he wasn't doing it again. But we got married. And the thing about that escalating co-parenting relationship took me back to court a total of 5 times, even though we mediated. Had Department of Child Services called on me a total of 5 times in a 10-year period from the time my kids were 4 and 2 until the one that is the biggest life transition for me, which occurred when my boys were 13 and 11. By this time there was already therapists involved and all that. I hugged my children goodbye. Have a great time with your dad for the summer, for the 1-week summer break. I got a call in the middle of that 1 week from the Department of Child Services saying that I was being accused of sexually abusing both of my sons. And so on that day, I frantically, it was not my first rodeo show with the Department of Child Services. On that day, I started calling, trying to get in. They refused to see me. And the children were not delivered back to me in my time on that Friday for fear under recommendation of, and I proceeded to march back into court on Tuesday, in which the judge, no facts, hearing just this kind of level, which probably is pretty common, ordered a no contact order on me, temporary no contact order on me. Now that no contact order stayed for the entire 3 years that we were fighting the custody battle. And my children went from 11 and 13 till basically almost 14 and 16. I had spent $800,000 in attorneys and legal fees, thanks to being able to refinance my home several times. Again, wealth of what this can help you do. And at the end, I couldn't afford the attorneys anymore. Good news, my father used to be a divorce attorney, so I wasn't scared of representing myself. So I wrote my brief, presented to the trial attorney, said, "Dear God," basically, not in those words, but please, no facts have ever been heard in this time period. I have not been allowed to see my children. This is under false allegations. Set a trial. And so he did. And the dates were over my younger son's 14th birthday, and of course, they were going to be to the stand now because, you know, now they're of age to be able to be in the stand. So I thought very, very long and hard. And it's really hard for any kid. It's really hard for any kid, but middle school is one of the hardest things. And they were in middle school, both of them. And I could not imagine how I could have both of my sons up on the stand, because it would be public, open, and me or a friend would be proving why they were lying, because it was going to be very easy to prove. The stories had gotten just out of control. So I just wasn't going to do it. I would have destroyed them. Their minds, I would have destroyed them for the rest of their life. And so I chose not to. And so I forced a settlement. And I went in, you know, and I kept the conversations going. I asked lots of people to help, and I kept the conversations going. And so in 2018 is when we settled, where, of course, they lived full-time with Dad, shared 50-50 legal custody still, so I could see them and know where their schools and all that were. They could see me whenever they wanted. So, took about, on the good news, it took about a year and a half, and then my older one first reached out to me. And then I'm going to leave you right there for a second, because 2018, if you all remember, was the Woolsey fire that came through. And so our home, it is up Yerba Buena, where the came raging. And so we always knew when we bought our home that we were the stayers. So my husband and I stayed and fought for 48 hours, the fire. And that is why our house was saved. All the homes around us, except for the 4 other homeowners that stayed, homes burned to the ground, and they are still rebuilding. So that 2018 was my year. When I was standing there fighting that fire, instead of just falling apart, I had a sense of clearing. I had a sense of almost like walking through the fire. It was calmness. It was just so certain. I cannot do what I've been doing. I am done doing what I've been doing. I need to live my passion. Friends and family and everybody have been telling me, you need to go into life coaching, you need to work in this space, and I just stopped everything. That's when I started my life coaching business. And it took me a year to do a second certification and go through the healing of what I just described and the feelings. And so who am I today? Yes, I'm still that 50-year-old woman. I have healed that relationship with that parent of mine. She is now my mother. She is now one of my best friends. It is through going through that healing that I was able to put the generations together to see how much I had and my actions had in the cause of that escalating co-parenting relationship. I had a lot to do with it, not because I was being mean or antagonistic. It was how I was showing up for my past. And I was able to walk through and clean through all that and forgive, so that, yes, my sons are now 20 and 18. My older son and I have this fabulous relationship, and I actually recently asked him, tell me, do you think I know you? And he says, I think you know me better than anybody else in my life. He stopped living with me 7 years ago. And so I'm reunited with my children, reconnected with my mother, and I have only the deepest love and respect for my ex-husband, as if he were my brother, because without him, I would not have found the pain in my past, connected it to what was going on to heal my family and to find my own life passion. And so for him, I have beautiful children. I had a beautiful adventures. I got to go to Cornell. You heard that. I would not have made that choice. I had this career. And so that's how I feel about him. So that's a lot of transitions to go through. And it's a lot. So because I wasn't going to remember the why, this is what, as I look back, these are the 8 things that I've done every single time I've had a transition. So, you know, one thing you start with is, for some reason, I've always had this sense of me. I might have doubted a decision, I might have doubted something, I might not even think that I was doing the right thing, but I just knew I had it within me. The next is to figure out what you want. Really what you want. The next is authentic and true. I mean, if you walk through this life without being your own person and being you, it just is going to feel off. Authentic and you and true to yourself. Internal boundaries are so important, because without internal boundaries, you cannot know how to help you to get what you want. Find your tribe. This is the beginning of it. Find the tribe. It's so important. Own your own part, and then forgive yourself. You're going to do a lot. No one's perfect. So own it and move on. And then forgive. Forgive you. Forgive everybody else. Just continually forgive. And the last is gratitude. Every day, no matter how dark things were, I would find something happy to think about, and it would bring me joy. So, thank you.
Well, good evening. It's so delightful to be here. Thank you to Main Street for putting this together. My name is Marty Laugh, and that is like smiling out loud. I have been in business for 30 years plus. I'm not going to get into all those details. I've been through some huge challenges. I've been through some transitions. I self-educated after my divorce from my first husband. I have children from his first marriage and my own children, and I have 9 grandchildren. I love what I do. I love my family, and it's not always easy. So what I kind of wanted to introduce you to is I am an investment advisor and financial planner. I have multiple degrees in various sectors of that, and I really make a difference in my clients' lives. I offer professionals and individuals like yourself, people who wonder about if they're going to have enough money at retirement or at that special time in their lives. How can they change their ways? How can they learn more about money? Because I'm an educator in addition to being a person who sells something. I think until you know what you're doing and what you're going to find out that it works best for you, we aren't going to get anything going. I have worked and helped individuals get through legacies and get through challenges with family members. I started out in the life insurance business before I started in the financial planning business. And before that, I was a nurse. And then I went in and started studying economics and programming. And in the 70s, before there was a Silicon Valley, or just about the time there was, I got a degree in programming and was invited to a hospital to write code for hospital programs. So I have interests in lots of things, and I'm interested in every one of the people that I work with to make sure they accomplish what's most important to them and their families. I have a PowerPoint with me today. That's just a little bit of an introduction, but it's whatever. Let's see if I can get this to go. So, do you have enough? And our real title under this today is, how can women elevate their financial security in 2022? Guess what? I have some ideas. I'm going to go through a couple of quick pieces here, and then I'm going to get back to what's going on today. What's happening with this economy? What are all these things that are going to affect your money now? So first picture here is, let's make some informed decisions. Until you know what's going on and what's important in your lives, we shouldn't go forward. By the way, I love money. I generally wear green. Most of my presentations are in green. And gold is the other color that I like. Do some of you have some concerns about what's going on with your money? Okay. All right. So when I create a plan, we take a look at, do you have a list of assets and liabilities currently? Where's your home, your main residence? We've talked a little bit about this here. I believe in owning residences. In my first marriage, I guided my husband, even though I was only like in my 20s, to buy property. And it saved my life when we got the divorce. I currently own a home, and it's paid for in full. And we have some other things that are going on with those property things as well. And so are my grandchildren. I'm guiding them to making sure that that's an important thing in their lives. So, what are your household treasures? What are your vehicles? Where are the things, what are your investment accounts? And how are they diversified? What are your savings accounts? And what are your retirement accounts? Those are all things that make up these things. Then, and I've run into this problem with some people, whose name are those assets in? I recently worked with, over the last 10 years, with a couple. And they assured me when we sat down that although he was divorced and his retirement plan was in another state, he'd already named his wife, who was working with me, as the owner on that property. It was not true. And he didn't realize it either. He thought he had guided his advisor to take care of that. Those are some of the things that I take a look at. The tragedy of that story is that 4 members of her family and herself lived in a house together, and those 4 other people died of COVID. She lost access to the house, and she lost the insurance and the retirement plan from him, and that's what she was planning on living on for the rest of her life. It makes me so mad when I hear that. So some of the things that we do is we check those things out. I am not a lawyer, I am not an accountant, but I know numbers and I know how to ask questions. What is the estimated value, dollar value, of the various things that you're working on, and what's realistic that you need to live on and what you need to keep? Because if you can keep your assets and work on the income from that, that will make all the difference for the rest of your life. So sources of income, salary or draw, depending on your life position right now, a business ownership, or possibly there's a buyout plan with that. Then in the future, Social Security, retirement plans, annuity benefits, disability payments, insurance can pay you very well as well. And then there's possibility of rental property. And it's a good idea to have a blend of those things when you're looking at your financial issues. Assessing your cash flow is something that I think is really important. How do you preserve and use your dollars for your financial needs? And everybody has different needs. I don't do a cookie cutter plan. And if you're working with someone, make sure that they're hearing you and listening to what your priorities are. So what I recommend when you're working with whoever you're working with, or if you're not working with anybody and you'd like to work with me, let's review what you've got, let's execute a good plan, and then let's review it and revise it. There should be diversification in your plan, quality of investments. It's not just what you think might be the newest thing that you saw on CNBC or heard on one of the financial channels. It needs to be reviewed, and I know how to do the deep dive to find some of those answers. Then you want to make sure that you've got some guaranteed returns, and you want to make sure that you do find a good advisor. There are many ways to find them. You can always check on who those people are that are in your community, in your background, and just every once in a while ask them a few questions. See that they're really up to date on what they're doing. So what are your wishes and intentions? Okay, so when you're working with an attorney, make sure you've got a will, maybe a trust, a healthcare directive, a power of attorney for healthcare, and a power of attorney for finances. I have seen people not take care of those things, and then people's hands are tied. And then maybe the state of California is going to have control of all of those things. And you don't want to give Uncle Sam or the governor of California the rights to make decisions for you after you're no longer here. Banking administration, there are sometimes, and I've seen this also, where someone has put in their will and not updated it for 20, 30 years. And so the bank that they don't deal with anymore is the bank that's named as the person that's going to help the family with those assets. So it's good to review those things on a regular basis. So care management in the home, nursing care, and assisted living. And we have one of our individuals here that's going to speak in a little bit that can give you some really good advice on that. In fact, I really am so honored to be with this entire panel. They are experts in what they do, and they can help you get the answers you need. All right, so this is the end of that presentation. My name is Marty Laff. I've put a couple of my brochures or papers like this on your table. They're not at every seat, and I have more, and if I run out of them, which I didn't plan for like 80 people here, but I do have my business card up here, and if you want to have a little bit more information from me, please fill out one of these forms or leave your name and contact information on this writing pad I have up front. I wanted to finish with just a couple of quick statements. The current economic issues. There is interest concerns. There is the problem with the China lockdown right now. There are various issues that are going on with the other economic issues here in the United States. Educate yourself, but please maybe shut down some of the social media that is having all these confusing ideas, and make sure you get to your advisor and your specialist who can give you a little bit of peace of mind. Find trusted experts. Make an appointment to find an opportunity. One of the opportunities in the economy that I'm suggesting that we look at right now is socially aware companies. It is currently what I've recently come across as an environmentally advised capitalism. Some of these companies are making it look like they care about socially aware. But I actually work with some organizations, and I'm continuing on my next education degree looking at ESG. So I think it's really important to make sure that we don't have an ongoing financial decline because we're not taking care of our environment and who we are and how we can stay healthy and safe in the future. Let's see. I have one final closing statement, and it's so important to me that I don't want to just forget it, and here it is. You have every single thing you need within yourself to manifest whatever you desire. Make sure you focus on it, ask for it, and it will happen. Thank you.
Hi everyone, thank you for being here tonight. I want to start with, if I handed you a mic, would you be able to talk about your business? Okay, the hands are coming up. Okay, would you be able to, how many would be able to talk about it confidently and within 1 minute, and also really get that message out there? Okay. I'm Kim Pagano, and I am the radio host for the Kim Pagano Show, The Brighter Side of Life on 1590 KVTA. And I first wanted to start off, I want to thank John and Gina for this incredible get-together for transition and women. And again, I thank you all for being here. What my intention is this evening is really to help you, give you 3 tips that you can make your message your magic. And so with that, I've passed out these on all your tables. If you take a moment to really write your business down and write a topic that best explains your business. Hey. So many familiar faces here, I love it. And what you're doing is you are going to be putting a topic that helps you, your listener, that you're going to be talking to, know more about your business. And so when you're on my radio show, what you do is we don't tell our whole business. We pick a topic, and then we find a question that we ask. So what I want to do is has everybody kind of put their stuff together? Okay, great. I want you to turn to the person maybe at your table that you don't know, and switch papers with them and have them introduce yourself and also interview them by asking them their question. Okay, Well, I can see that this is amazing and everybody's connecting, and that's really my gift, is to connect everyone out there. And I just want to find out, by using their question, did you understand what everybody does? Yes. Good, good. Well, my gift for you this evening is for everyone that signs up, there's a QR code on all of yours, right? Is that if you want to really make your message magic and strategize with me, I would love to get on a call with you. And what I'm going to be doing is, whoever signs up, I am going to be giving 2 interviews away for my show. And so I would love to get everybody on there and at least have a conversation and make sure that your message is your magic. Again, I'm Kim Pagano. Please tune in to the Kim Pagano Show, the brighter side of life. And again, thank you so much for being here.
Well, I wanted to say thank you to Gina and Main Street Mortgage. I appreciate this. It's a great event. It's a nice opportunity to listen to various speakers and and visit the vendors. So I think it's awesome. So my story is a little bit different. About 35 years ago, gulp, I counted that the other day. It's like I started just as a bookkeeper. And I thought, well, I'll work for a CPA firm and just find out I'll never be bored. That'll be a really good thing. So I worked for the CPA firm and I thought, wow, I really like taxes. And I know people are like, oh geez, what's wrong with her? But it was a lot of fun, and so I started going to school at night. And I took 18 years at night to go to school, just learning, and just because I had my kids, my husband was a fireman with a funky schedule and nights not being home. And I was just plugging along, and then my boss made me partner. It's like 20% partner. I'm like, oh, that's really cool. But I realized I was on this race. I was like going to school all the time, studying all the time. So once I landed, it was like, I'm not happy. I just felt like, whoa. And it was because I felt like I was sort of settling. Because my boss, he was my partner, but he was really my boss. And what it was is I didn't love the clients that we worked with. He always wanted to work with people that he just thought were really rich, quick buck, but I wanted to help people. I remember one time we were trying to decide what staff we were going to work with, David or Ernie. And he wanted to work on David, and David was very nice, very wealthy real estate professional. But I felt sorry for Ernie. I'm like, he has owed so much money in back taxes. He has the threat of being garnished. And so I always had this internal struggle, but I felt like I could never use my voice. I could never say how I really felt because it wasn't my thing. And then we just plugged along. And I remember one time we were paying the bill. We paid the staff, we always did, and paid all the bills. And we couldn't pay ourselves. I'm like, well, that sucks. And then so we went a week, and he's like, we'll catch up. And it was 2 weeks, 3 weeks. All the way to 4, 5, and it was finally 6 weeks. Like, oh my gosh. And then that was a real aha moment. I thought, if I can go a month and a half without being paid, that kind of gave me the courage. I thought, well, I can just go a month and a half and do what I want to do and just leave. So that was kind of my journey. But the thing was, it was hard. It was really hard to start my practice. I thought, oh, I'm a CPA, I know what I'm doing. No, there's all the other stuff. So those of you that are starting businesses, kudos to you. It is hard. But I think it's honestly been the best thing I ever did. I love it. I love my clients that I work with. They're so fun. I get to pick who I hang out with, so it's a great thing. And do things like this, talk about my favorite topic, taxes, believe it or not. But I wanted to share three tax tips, just sort of a takeaway. Some people are confused on what is a tax credit compared to a tax deduction. So tax credit is a dollar for dollar reduction in your taxes, whereas a deduction just comes against what your income is. For example, say I make $100,000 and I have a tax deduction of $10,000, so my income is $90,000. So in my tax bracket is say 20%. So now my taxes on that is going to be $18,000. So my $10,000 deduction saved me $2,000 in tax, which is good. But a credit, say I make $100,000 and I have 20% tax bracket again, so the tax on that would be $20,000. But if I have a $10,000 credit, then I'm only paying $10,000. So $10,000 deduction is $2,000 tax saving, or $10,000 credit is $10,000 tax saving. So you always want to do the credit first. So and examples of credits are child tax credit, dependent care credit, there's the solar energy credit, and education credit. That's a really big one too. So now that we've got the credits and deductions settled, now the difference is, what was the difference between a standard deduction and an itemized deduction? The standard deduction is what everybody gets, no matter what. If you're single, you get, I think it's $12,500 roughly. Married filing joint gets double that. And a lot of people are like, oh, I'll just take the standard deduction, it's just what I'll do. But take the time to see, maybe you can itemize, because if you can do an itemized deduction, that's a way better, you can get more things. And people are like, well, I don't think I have enough. But the categories of itemized deductions are medical expenses. Granted, they need to be 7.5% of your adjusted gross income, and hopefully you don't pay that much. But if you do, that includes health insurance, doctor visits, prescription. You can even take medical miles. You get miles on the medical miles. The next category is taxes for itemized deduction, and it includes real estate taxes, it includes property taxes, DMV, and if you're a W-2 employee, there's something called SDI. It includes that too, so make sure you get all of that. The only thing is it's limited to $10,000. And then the next category for itemized deduction, which is huge to me, is mortgage interest. It's like a big automatic deduction. You're buying a house, you might as well take advantage of the interest that you're deducting. That's a big one. And the last category, kind of one of my favorites, is charitable donation. You can take charitable donations as a deduction, but not just for the 501c3s that you write by check. Think about the non-cash thing. Think about, like, what I try to do is every year I go through actually in the summer when my birthday is, I'm like, what am I not wearing? What can I get rid of? And I just put them in a bag, and as I put them in the bag, I just track, okay, that's a pair of pants, 2 blouses, maybe it's a suit. And the cool thing is, you put it on a piece of paper, and if you go to the Salvation Army's website, they'll give you the value. So it's really quick, and it's right there. If you're ever audited, you have it. So that's kind of a good thing on that. And then the last thing I wanted to share today is on retirement accounts. When people say, how can I save money right now? What can I do today? I always say, contribute to your retirement account. Marty can help you set them up. But the thing is, because you can do an IRA, and there's various plans. But I do want to just do one word of caution. And this happened to me, one of my clients this year, and this was a new client. I felt so bad. It like really weighed on me. So she took out about $250,000 out of her retirement account. So it's taxable. And so she brought in her 1099-R, and it showed that she had 20% withheld, so she thinks she's good. But the problem is she had to pay tax on that, as well as her income, and her income was already about $100,000. So that bumped her up to a tax bracket, like in the 36% or so she ended up paying. And I felt so bad. She was like, well, wait, that doesn't make sense. What do you mean I owe money? I had taxes withheld, but it was only 20%. So when you take it out, you need to think about all of your income. I think she was trying not to cry, and I'm like, oh, it's just horrible. And she did it because she thought that she had to, because she left a job. She thought that she just had to take it all. So just a word of caution to think about, the retirement account. A great deduction, but think about when you're taking it out, do a little bit of tax planning. And I think that is all I have for my tax tips. So it's kind of what the difference is on the credits and the deductions. The credits are always better. Take the time to figure out if you can itemize, because some people are like, well, I don't own a house, I can't itemize. But the taxes alone, you can probably take $10,000. Maybe you can do, write off contributions. And then if you think, well, I'm on the fence, I just do standard deduction. Well, do some planning. Maybe pay your medical, bunch them all in 1 year. Or maybe do a really big contribution. Don't do 1 year, but do another year. And alternate between standard and itemized deduction. So there's a lot of fun, well, I think fun, tax planning that you can do. All right, and then that concludes mine, and you guys have a treat coming up with Meredith.
Did you know if you're a business owner, long-term care is tax deductible? That wasn't supposed to be in my presentation, but now it is. So, I'm Meredith Gonzalez, and I'm a life and health insurance agent, and I specialize in long-term care planning. I figured we'd get started real fast because we're at the end of the stretch. I'm the 7th inning stretch. If everyone wants to get up and just stretch, just a minute, stand up, get the blood flowing, move, get it going. And I just wanted to say, okay, before anyone sits down, everybody stand up. Before you sit down, if you know anybody who has or is helping or is working with anyone who has any cognitive disorders, any kind of health issues, anybody who you know that is helping someone out, or you may be in that place, currently in a situation where a family member or someone you know is dealing with some kind of health crisis. Stay standing. If you don't, sit down. If you don't know anybody that's dealing with someone, sit down. What a number. So as you can see, when we're looking at everybody and we're looking at what we need to do in the future to help out our family members, just want to show by people standing, well, I guess people have sat down now, but what that percentage is. To give you a little bit of a background about me, I was in the healthcare industry for 25 years, and I worked with brain injury, spinal cord injury, and amputees for all those years. And people always think my insurance is going to pay for this. Something happens to you, my insurance is going to take care of it. Oh, I have Medicare, it's going to pay for it. Well, we're learning it really doesn't. And we're in the sandwich generation that we are now taking care of our family members in addition to taking care of our kids, and we need to figure out how to be better planned for some of these medical expenses that we didn't think we would be responsible for. So, with that being said, I wanted to go to a statistic. So did you know that 70% of Americans age 65 and older can expect to use some type of long-term care service in their remaining years? And then I wanted to bring it to a statistic that all of us were here for a women's organization, Women Power. Love you guys too, we really do love you guys. But 57% of those statistics is American women, and when we turn 25, we're going to develop some kind of disability, cognitive issue that's going to require some kind of long-term care services. So just some alarming statistics, just to know that when we were kind of standing and sitting, most people know somebody, and sadly, it's going to come to us soon if we haven't already been hit by it. So what exactly is long-term care? So long-term care is when you need services. You need somebody to assist and help you. And the way we designate that is we look at activities of daily living. That's what we call them. So there's things that you do every day and you take advantage. We've been eating beautiful meals or getting ourselves dressed to look great here. Hopefully we took a bath today or yesterday, who knows. We're getting in and out of bed, we're tying our shoes, we're getting all that done. Going to the bathroom, continence, hopefully we all got that still right now. But and then another thing that people don't have on this list is cognitive issues. This is a biggie that's coming. We're knowing way more people are living long lives with chronic illness, long lives with cognitive issues, and they're not just living the 2 and the 3 and the 4 and the 5, they're living 20 years with cognitive issues. So if you have family members, you've seen it, you felt it, you know what this is. It's not an easy thing to deal with. So, why should I consider long-term care planning? We're going to think about this today, and we're going to look at maybe what a plan maybe would look like for you. So on your pages here, on the table, I left everyone a little handy-dandy work page, and we're going to do a little work. It's the end of the night. We're going to get our body, our minds, and everything moving. We've heard some amazing speakers, and this is just something to think about for you. We're going to design your plan. Everybody's paper is going to look different. Everyone's mind is going to be going a lot of different ways. But where we like to start is your who. Who would be the person that's taking care of you? Is that a spouse? Is it kids? Is it a family member? Are you already in a situation where like, wow, I need a nurse to come in? Who is your who? Write down in that box just people that you can think of that wouldn't mind, and sometimes I get a little silly, but wouldn't mind wiping your booty a little bit. So who is that person? And what I like to really ask is, do they know? Do they know you're the caregiver? Do they know you're the who? Because people, you might be thinking of someone who would take care of you, help you bathe, but do they know? You know, I don't want to go too long on stories because I know we're at the end of our thing, but my husband's grandparents were ill, they're passed now, and his grandfather had colon cancer with a colostomy bag. Well, he was a who to Grandpa. And my husband said, absolutely not. This is not the relationship I want to have with my grandfather. So when it came to a colostomy bag, he was not the who. When it came to being able to live in our back house and have a roof over his head and we would take care of him and entertain him, and he was a who. But really think about that, and who is your who and do they know it? Next, we want to look at where do we want these services to occur? You know, most of us are like, we want to live at home. We want to live alone as long as we possibly can. And that is really the goal. We want to live at home, safely at home for as long as we possibly can. There's a lot of issues that happen when you do move people, you know, especially even when they're not cognitively impaired and you move them into a facility. Now you start someone's out of their norm. Now they're starting to have cognitive issues. I have a family friend of mine who lost her dad. Well, now mom is having cognitive issues. She's still at home, but cognitive issues because her life has changed. So where do we want to go? Do we want to stay at home? That's the goal. Do we want to go to senior living? I'm super social. If something happened to my husband, maybe I want to go to community living and do some shuffleboard and stuff like that with people. That's me, maybe not you. Skilled nursing, memory care, obviously these are ones that usually you don't have a choice, but this is, options. And then we got to look at exactly how am I going to do this? How much does this cost? So if we're looking at home care, I know that's such a huge dramatic number, from $57,000 a year to $312,000 a year. Why? You know, I talking about our tribe, and I know Jan and I have talked about this a lot. You know, I work with long-term care issues all the time. I work with families who mom maybe has a need, and they come to me and they say, Mom has a long-term care policy. I don't know how to read it. Help me out. Great. I don't care what company it's with. I'm going to help you figure that out. Mom doesn't have any. I always say mom because oftentimes it's mom, by the way, but doesn't have anything in place. How do we deal with this? Figure out some solutions. But I do work with a lot of home care facilities because I want trusted people that I can keep in my village to make sure mom needs something. This is a nurse that I recommend. Mom needs something else. This is a company I recommend. So a gal that I work with a lot, she says, $57,000 is kind of getting your basics. It's when, okay, we have siblings that can help out. Everyone's running around, juggling their kids, juggling life, and going to mom and dad and helping out wherever they can. Maybe on the weekends, family's there and they just need maybe a nurse to come in during the week or in the evening if there's some cognitive issues. That could be low. That could be a couple hours that you're paying a nurse. But it also could mean that you have a full-time nurse. Maybe you have some cognitive issues, and at night, that's when you're going to wander. That's when you don't know what's going on. That's when you're sleeping in bed with your wife or your spouse, whatever, and now you're waking up and you're going for the door because you don't know where your wife is, and she's right there. So there's so many ways that it could get really expensive. So just kind of, that's kind of your range here. And this is actually some numbers in Los Angeles County. If you are thinking, I'm getting the hell out of Dodge and I'm not going to be in LA, there are numbers and everything that I can give you those if you do need those. Senior living, that's looking 60,000 to about 72,000, and skilled nursing from 100 to 145. These are just averages, and this is today. This is not inflation. This is not when we all need this, hopefully, years and years from now. So this is today's numbers. So we need to be properly planned for that. So how do we plan for this? I will tell you 95% of people will tell me, oh yeah, Medicare is going to pay for that. Okay. No. So essentially what Medicare is going to pay for is, let's say you fall and you break a hip. You got to go to the hospital. Medicare will pay for that. Medicare will pay for you to be in the hospital. Medicare will pay for you to go home. Medicare will pay for you to have that rehab for 100 days. And of those 80 of those 100 days, you're actually paying a copayment, a big one. And it goes lower, and that depends on what plan you have. 101 day, my hip is not better. What do? It's your responsibility. Insurance doesn't pay for it. Medicare is not paying for it. Something to think about. So what do I have? I have savings. Great. Now let's go through that savings account that we have. Well, how much do we really plan? Okay, now, great. I've gone through this savings. I'm going to refinance my home. I'm going to do a reverse mortgage. There are solutions for people. I have people who don't have any plan in place. Those are some solutions, viable solutions we're working with clients. Do I look at long-term care insurance? There's a lot of different options for long-term care insurance. I want to say that most of the time when I talk to people and I say, oh, I'm in long-term care, like, oh, God, that's expensive. So really? Tell me. They say, well, you know, this and that, you know. And I said, well, is long-term care insurance expensive, or is the cost of care of paying for the long-term care expenses expensive? I did too many X's in a row. And they look at me with like a stare, and they don't know what I'm talking about. And I said, let's look at that. And then we got to reverse that slide and then look at those numbers, and like, holy moly. So there's a lot of ways that, you know, we can work with clients. We kind of look at, and Marty and I work a lot together too with being able to help clients see exactly what they have. How do they need a plan? What solutions can we put them in that's going to put them in a better situation, so that way you're not putting the burden on your family members. You're not putting the burden, I think, on my kids. And that's for me. I have 2 teenage sons. I don't want them to be my why or my who. I want them to be my why. I don't want them to be my who. I want them to be the person who manages my care, because I've planned properly to have some money set aside so they can then pay a nurse to change that colostomy bag, because I don't want them to do it either. So kind of coming down to that, the future does depend on what we do at the present. There is a little gift on your table for everyone. There's a pack of seeds for you. Please plant those, see how it grows. Maybe we can do that with some of your planning. And thank you so much. I really appreciate your time tonight, and it's been a pleasure.
So questions that you have, please come up to the panel members. They're great. Thank you for excellent work today. We really appreciate that. On your table is my book. We want to give that to you as a gift, even though you probably own a home. You can give it to someone. I think that it's good reading. It came out much better than I thought it did, so we appreciate that. And also, we are starting what's called a Circle of Champions for women, and we want to hear your story. And you've heard some great stories. We believe that you've got a story in you that is so powerful that you yourself don't realize how powerful you really are. And so, for those of you that have interest, we would love to be able to hear your story. And I'll turn it over to Gina.
Thank you. Thank everyone tonight for coming. I really appreciate it, and we've had a great turnout. And if you do have any questions, please come up to the panel. And I've had a couple people that walked up to me and wanted to talk, so I'll give you my business card so you can give me a call. Thank you to our vendors. Each of you look amazing over there, and please stop by the vendors if you haven't already done a little bit of And of course, I want to thank our Main Street family for everything. And Tracy and Jody for helping, and Hillary, and Nathan for doing the water runs and the traffic outside. Thank you.
This event was great. I came to support Gina, my friend and colleague, and I just felt it was a great coming together. It was a great event because different women came together to share their stories and also inspire us with, you know, various aspects of life that we have to deal with, and it's important. And so I'm glad that John and company did this, and we should have these events more often. And for me, it was very informative.
I'm Dr. Meg Hayworth, and I am a transpersonal psychologist and holistic nutritional chef. And what I do is I help people heal chronic illness with food and the power of the mind. And this event was I was so excited because of the pandemic and how we haven't been able to get together for a couple of years and have events like this. And so to bring everybody together and talk about things that are so important for people's forward movement, especially for women, was just really great. So I'm very grateful that this event went on tonight.
My name is Nathan Chaney. I work for ADT Corporate in Chatsworth, California, and I thought this event was amazing to see a bunch of women brought together, actually talking about empowerment and financial institutions and real estate and things like that, because I feel like the culture and in general, how everything is towards women and how nothing's equal. I think that it's very insane due to the fact that we do have the assets and the resources to make everything equal. And I think that we need to focus more on women empowerment, because I think that'll make the world a better place, much better than it is right now. I think we need to actually put more women in power to actually, make things a little bit easier for men, because what I know about men, and as being a man, we tend to have a lot of pride, and women are a little more not as tense as us. They can actually handle a situation better than how we handle situations. So I think that we need to keep focusing on having women empowerment. I think that we need to keep doing this and have more gatherings like this, and let's go. Women Empowerment Month, every month should be a big thing, and you're hearing it from Nathan Chaney. Let's go.
My name is Julie Everett, and I am a realtor with eXp Realty of California. And I have known John for several years now, and he is one of my preferred lenders that I always refer my clients to. Mostly because he is a great person with challenges. And this event is definitely an example of that, because he is trying to help women that are in transition, and it is a great thing that he is doing, to be able to help people that have these challenges. And he's even starting a women's circle event. It sounds like. I'm not exactly sure what it's going to entail, but it sounds like it's going to be wonderful, especially if John is at the helm. Something that I learned tonight, well, actually I've learned several things. There's always moving parts at any seminar, and there are so many great panelists. One of the things, now that I'm thinking of it, that I learned was about the tax deductions on some of the different levels of tax credits, I guess you could say. And that was really interesting to learn about as well. Also with long-term care insurance, that's something that a lot of people don't think about, that they do need to look into. And all of the panelists were really great. One of the panelists was a broker from Sotheby's Realty, and was very impressed with all of her points of investments. Some things that you can do that is different than just buying a house. You know, you can do a 1031 exchange, or you can invest in a REIT, R-E-I-T, which is a real estate investment trust. You can do lots of different things in order to elevate your potential, you know, your wealth growth potential. So those are just a few of the things nuggets that I picked up tonight. I would recommend this to anybody who actually is going through some changes or going through a transition. I actually recommend this to pretty much anybody, even if they're not going through a transition, because all of the information is so helpful to pretty much anybody. They can use it at any point in their life, but it's better to get started when you're younger rather than when you're older. But if you haven't gotten started yet, now is the time to do it.
My name is Heather Martin, and I am Senior Vice President at Westland Wholesale. I run all of our global operations. In addition to that, I was a part of the Main Street family for a long time, and have deep respect and love for John and Gina and the whole Main Street family, and their belief and trust and idea about uplifting women. It is so nice and so refreshing to hear a company really taking that position and supporting us in so many ways. John's always been very supportive of me, and he's been incredibly supportive of my best friend Gina, and it's been an amazing experience. And tonight was just another example of just how much they work to bring the community together and to highlight the strengths of other women in the community, and to educate us about things and thoughts and processes that we may not have at the forefront of our mind, but that is very important to think about.